Well, hello everybody. I believe I'm live. Not really sure how I'm live, but I believe I am live. Darling, am I live on my page or on the events page?
On your page.
On my page? I'm just going to try and find myself. Oh, and it says this video is no longer available. Alright, well, I don't know what's happening there.
You're live on the page.
I'm live on my page? Okay. Hey everybody. There are people. Hello people. I don't know why it's not showing up for me, but never mind. How are we all tonight on this dark moon before the eclipse? So I think it's a kind of even more intense. Can you see if you can find it on my phone, please, darling? I think it's an even more intense dark moon because it's the dark moon before the eclipse. And so what I want to do tonight is I want to actually focus on the fact that this dark moon takes place at the time of what we call the balsamic moon. And of course the balsamic moon is I think it's even more. It's a bit loud, darling.
It's no, the weird thing is that...
Okay, darling, it's too distracting for me having you standing there. There we go. Sorry, darling. Sorry. I've got everything happening. Let me just look at your comments and say hello. Okay, so we've got spammers. Olivier, we've got spammers, darling. Okay. Hi, Tracy. Hi, Stacy. Hello, Dawn. Hello, Angel. Hello, Jenna. Okay, it's all working. And if I do this, it's good because I can actually see your comments on my phone. So that's great. All right. So as I was saying, basically, and I will explain this in a minute, but basically tonight is the dark moon and it's the night before the new moon eclipse tomorrow in the sign of Sagittarius. And I think that's why tonight feels even more intense than ever. So if you're feeling very intense right now or exhausted, that's another possibility. That's pretty much why. So I'm going to do something a bit different tonight than I always do for the dark moon. I was actually called, you know how crystals just call to you sometimes? So I was just walking downstairs and this beautiful chunk, this beautiful amethyst bed literally was like, take me, I want to be in the thing. And I thought, okay. And what amethyst always makes me think of is healing. And we're in the dark moon, which is in the balsamic phase. I'll explain that in a minute. But we're in the balsamic phase, which is actually balsamic means healing and soothing. Healing and soothing. So I think this is going to be a very healing dark moon for us all. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by clearing our chakras because it's Friday night, at least it is here in the UK, and we've all had a big week, and it's just a really good time to sort of, you know, tune into the energies and to tune in to balancing our chakras. So I'm going to do the chakra clearing chant just once. So here we go. Hari Om Nam Lam Mam Vam Sim Ram Vam Yam Yam Ham Shiva Om Swaha. And we call in the Divine Mother. Om Namo Narayani, Om Namo Narayani, Om Namo Narayani. Please guide us through our ceremony tonight. So what I wanted to do tonight, as I said, it's a little bit different. We will end up with doing some clearing with a chant to Kali at the end of all this. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to treat you to some brilliant and wise thoughts from a book that I read last year. Many of you know that I read this last year because I didn't stop talking about it. And I happened upon it today as I was getting ready for tonight. And it's Mysteries of the Dark Moon by Demtra George. And I really, really wanted to share some of the thoughts from this amazing book. And actually, as I was leafing through it, I realized there's a whole section that I didn't read, which is all about the Paleolithic period and the Neolithic period, and Demetra's theory about the whole progressed moon cycle taking 40,000 years, which explains why women kind of went into hiding about 5,000 years ago, which we did, and why we now, when we went through the balsamic phase, which is exactly where we are now, before now, when we're going into the new moon phase. It's a bit complicated to explain, but if you're interested in the moon and you're interested in feminine history and goddesses and so on, I highly recommend it. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to share with you some thoughts from Demtra George. So the first one is, and I actually did put this, if you're in my Moonology certification program, you will have probably seen this on the Facebook site today, Facebook page today, because I did put it up there. But I'm going to share it here. So someone asked me last night I did a special workshop for a Q&A actually for people who did my Moonology certification course. And someone said to me, so why is the moon feminine and the sun is masculine? And I didn't really know the answer. I was like, well, I don't know. It's just always been like that. And I know that it's been like that for millennia, but I didn't really know where it came from. Excuse me. And today, as I was leafing through Demetra's book for the 5 millionth time, I noticed a section which talked about the fact that, well, I'll read it, noting the correlation between the 29 days of the moon's cycle and the 29 days of women's menstrual cycles, the ancients, like really the ancients, surmised that the moon must be feminine. So I just thought I'd share that because that was actually news to me. Someone said it's good that you're still learning. It's like, oh my God, of course I'm still learning. I'm always learning, or I hope I'm always learning. I hope I never stop learning. And I thought, okay, well, that's so obvious. I should have realized that, and I never did. Which in a funny way as well, what it also made me think is, okay, so the men get the sun, S-U-N, by default, because we got the moon, therefore they are left with the sun, which kind of amused me as well. All right, so one thing I do like to do every time we do a dark moon ceremony is just to explain the context that we're in. Okay, so here it is. I think I've got a little pointer. Here we are. Okay, so where are we? We are had the full, the waning, the third quarter. So we are here at the waning crescent moon, also known as the balsamic moon. Then tomorrow we're going to have the new moon eclipse. I'll be doing a new moon eclipse event, which you can, it's free. It's on my Facebook events page. And yeah, it's going to be a big one because it's the eclipse. Then we get the waxing cycle crescent when the moon sort of appears just a little bit. And if you know the triple moon sign, you always see the moon like that, and then you see the full moon, and then you see the moon like that. Okay, so there's the waxing crescent. So you know in the northern hemisphere, it's actually different in the southern hemisphere, believe it or not. But we know in the northern hemisphere, when it looks like that, it's the waxing crescent. Then we get the first quarter, the waxing gibbous, the full moon, the waning gibbous or the disseminating moon, the third quarter, and the waning crescent or the balsamic moon, which is what we call it, the balsamic moon, which means healing and soothing. And then I think, well, Demtra says it's all of this is the dark moon. I actually feel like, and again, I don't want to argue with Demtra, she's the legend, but I feel like it's really the end of the balsamic phase when we really start to feel the dark of the moon. So yeah, that's where the dark of the moon fits in, and it's not really astrology, although someone said to me the other day, Yasmin, you talk about it in an astrological context, therefore you are making it astrology. So I don't know if that's true or not, but I thought that was kind of amusing. That was a girlfriend of mine who's an astrologer, very accomplished astrologer in the States, who reads my diaries before they go to press. All right, so again, to call on the beautiful work of Demtra George, I often say this, you know, if you've seen me doing these events before, let me just move myself so I'm not covering the text. I'm here, hello. during the waning dark phase of the moon cycle, which is exactly where we are right now, the fruit that has been left on the vine to go to seed withers and decomposes. Okay, during the waning dark phase of the moon cycle, which is exactly where we are now, the fruit that has been left on the vine to go to seed withers and decomposes. And you know, that's why now is the time to be just letting it all go. You know, think of the grapes like that. They get so dry that you could just crush them in your hands. I know I explain this every month, but I still feel it. I'm still feeling my way into it. And for me, it's such a good explanation of it. So this is the time to just think, what in my life am I just letting go, turning to dust and letting go. We're not going to do any writing down or burning tonight, but we are going to do chanting. So you just need to set the intention of what you're releasing. Okay. All right. So, and I thought this was really interesting as well. Just in case you didn't know, the matriarchal cultures who venerated the goddess since the Upper Paleolithic were conquered and destroyed by patriarchal warlike races who carried superior weapons. The matriarchal cultures who venerated the goddess since the Upper Paleolithic were conquered and destroyed by patriarchal warlike races who carried superior weapons. Now, I find this really interesting just because it's giving a kind of a historical context to what's gone on the planet. Women used to rule the world. We used to be in a matriarchal society, although there's a lot of evidence to say that when we were in a matriarchal society, actually women didn't, it was matrilineal, which meant that how now property goes from the oldest son to the oldest son to the oldest son, whereas it used to go from woman to woman to woman. And it was matrifocal, which meant it was focused on the women. But this all changed. This all changed after the patriarchal warlike races conquered and destroyed the goddess culture. I just thought that was kind of interesting because the way Demtra George puts this in her book is that basically it was a goddess society, women were venerated, and women were venerated not least for our powers, which played out in sex. Sex was used for healing back in the day, and then of course made, dirty and wicked, which culminated probably in slut shaming, and now we're kind of turning the corner from that. But women's powers were partially to do with sex and the healing power of sex, and also women's ability and back in thousands of years ago, in helping people pass on, die. And it's a bit like the moon, grows big to the full moon and then wanes and gets smaller and smaller and then disappears, like she's disappeared right now, and then is reborn. And women were part of this cycle, and the goddess was part of this cycle. And and now everyone's terrified of death, and so all the things that women did were kind of blackened, and goddesses like Lilith became murderous children stealers, and the goddess, the dark goddess, which is the goddess that rules this phase of the moon that we're in, became a scary goddess, and it was really the patriarchy that did that, because women had this power, and little by little, men, the patriarchal society, and I always say probably my two favorite people in the world, along with my mum and my sister, are my husband and my son, and they are men. So I'm not an anti-men, I'm talking about society, the patriarchal society as a whole. And they chipped and chipped away from it. It sort of peaked, I suppose, in a way, with the witch hunts 500 years ago, when hundreds of thousands, or even some people say millions of women were burnt alive at the stake or hanged or drowned for being a witch, for working with our powers. And this period in particular, the dark moon, has always been sort of considered a very scary part of the cycle, because people are scared of letting go. All right, so here we go. So the earliest peoples understood that the power of life lay in the darkness of the moon. Now, why is that so? because this is when the moon disappears, where we are right now. I'm just going to hold this, I don't know if you can see it, I'm holding the amethyst to my heart chakra. This is when the moon disappears before being reborn once we move past the new moon and into the waxing cycle. After thousands of years, humanity forgot this truth and began to fear the power in the waning dark moon. Really? Are you getting it? It's kind of amazing. And, you know, it honestly is my honor and privilege to reconnect you with this information. But I really want to pay homage to Demtra George, who I've quoted extensively tonight. I highly recommend her book, Mysteries of the Dark Moon. I literally just wanted to share some of her brilliance with you. I'm just going to take a moment to see what you're saying on Facebook. Hopefully no one's saying anything bad like, I can't hear you. No, good. The dark moon is for banishing. I think that's kind of a Wicca thing, isn't it? Athena is my goddess. I learned all that when I went to Santorini. They excavated a whole thing that proves there was a matriarchal society there. Yes, exactly. I learned that in Santorini a bit as well. Okay, Elizabeth Moore says, is it right that you should not manifest at the time of an eclipse? No, it's not right, but I will definitely talk about that tomorrow at the time of the new moon. Let's stick with the dark moon for now. Yes, says Alicia, all our magical feminine powers were repressed, but we are rising. Exactly. Exactly. Jessica Cooper, thank you for always being you. I love you. Oh, that's so sweet. I can't be anyone else, luckily. For me, because that would be a bit weird. Alicia, it's an excellent education for us. Love this book. Great. Holly, my favourite quote of the course was, we are the daughters of the witches they couldn't burn. Yes, well, I didn't make that up, by the way. That's a well-known saying, but yes, I love that too. All right, so let's keep going. What is going to be revealed to us on this next slide? Okay, so the dark moon, again, where we are now, is a time of retreat, of healing. Okay, just draw in the energy from this beautiful amethyst. Just do that. Okay, of dreaming the future. The darkness is lit with the translucent quality of transformation, and during this essential and necessary period, life is prepared to be born. So that's the thing. It's like, if you see the new moon as conception, you know, this is the period just before conception, and then we get the new moon and there's conception, and then the baby grows until full moon and is born. Okie dokie. So, the gifts of inspiration, prophecy, and divination were believed to come from the dark moon, carried by serpents whose venom was used to induce transcendent visionary states. The gifts of inspiration, prophecy, and divination were believed to come from the dark moon, carried by serpents whose venom was used to induce transcendent visionary states. And I found that really interesting, for one thing, because of the gifts of inspiration, prophecy, and divination. Well, you know, that's what we do. That's what we do with, when we do oracle cards, for example. I've got my oracle cards here. Dare I remind you, they're on sale at 50% off. I mean, I've told you that already anyway. What I find really interesting here is that the idea of the serpent, because, you know, just like, you know, sex became bad, like the Victorians made sex so bad, but even before that, sex became, you know, sort of a dirty, evil thing, and death is this terrifying thing. And what are snakes? Terrifying. And yet what do they represent? They actually represent this divine feminine, or sovereign feminine wisdom. And in fact, think about the goddess Medusa, okay, with all her snakes around her head. Her decapitation actually symbolizes the decapitation of the matriarchy by the patriarchy. And snakes are actually very much divine feminine creatures. And yet, you know, we're told they're bad, and we're told the story of the Garden of Eden in the Bible, where you know, the snake tempts them, and you know, Eve's a terrible sinner, and all this and all that. So, you know, it all kind of comes together as you start to read about it. It's for me, it's fascinating. And we must make sure that we undo years and years of brainwashing. And we must say that it's really important to learn to work with the dark moon. I was also thinking actually about my teacher in India, Sri Shakti Narayani Amma. Quite often when Amma is up on the stage doing pujas, Amma does pujas for, I don't know, up to 12 hours a day. It's quite extraordinary. Quite a lot of people have reported, I don't know if I've seen this, maybe I have, maybe I haven't, but quite a few people have seen like serpents kind of guarding Amma on both sides. And when I got told that, first of all, when I was in India once, I was like, oh gosh, that's a bit freaky. Why are people seeing snakes? And someone said to me, Yasmin, they represent the divine feminine. I'm like, makes so much sense when you know. All right. So we enter into the dark moon phase. That's where we are now. The transition between the destruction of the old. Okay, so this is like it's the destruction of the old. That's where we are now. We've had the new moon, we've had the full moon, gone all the way back nearly to new moon. And this is the time for destruction, to just let it all go. Okay, and in a minute I'm going to ask you to put in the comments, what are you destroying in your life? The destruction of the old and the creation of the new, which will come with after the new moon. This process is called transformation, a process that occurs whenever any life form has fulfilled its purpose and used up, its store of vital energy. So what I'm going to ask you to do now is I'm going to ask you to either say out loud, or write it down on a piece of paper, or write it in the comments. What are you releasing? Okay, I'm going to write mine down. I'm just going to put on a tiny little bit of music. I've got Edor and Joe, who I've got absolute permission to play anytime I like, as you probably know by now, because I tell you every single time I play them. Let me see. I want to put on, I actually want to put on this track. Here we go. So write down what you are releasing. And I said I wasn't going to burn anything tonight, but actually, you know what? I am going to burn my piece of paper that I'm about to write on. And as I burn it, I'll burn it for all of us. Okay? Do you know what that was? Okay. Just write what I'm releasing. Scrunch it up, because I'm not going to burn it here. I'll burn it outside after, but I'll burn it on behalf of everybody. So let's just close our eyes a bit and enjoy this beautiful music by Edor and Joe. Edo and Joe. And the words are Om Namo Narayani, which mean I surrender to the divine. So as we destroy, as we release, we surrender to the divine. See what you guys are saying. Okay, Ale is releasing anger. It's a good one. Gretchen, fear, anxiety, and worry over money and lack. Okay. Nancy, releasing fears and beliefs that limit me. Okay. Laurie, releasing self-imposed limitations and releasing judgment and shame directed inward. Okay. Jane, releasing self-doubt. Jeannie, releasing judgment and false ego. Yvonne, self-doubt. All right, okay. So whatever you're releasing, what I'd like you to do as well is I'd like you to think about it tomorrow, about you've released it. What are you going to replace it with? Okay, because once we do a release, then we need to do a, we need to replace it. Okay, so think about and see if you can make it something that matches. So say, for example, if you're releasing self-doubt, which a couple of you are, then tomorrow what you really want to do is you want to be looking at replacing it, say, with confidence, with self-confidence or self-assuredness, you know, something that's basically the opposite. All right, okay, so what I'm going to do now, before we finish with a chant, I'm going to get my cards, which, as I said, you can get them with 50% off. Feels a bit profane to even mention that at such a sacred moment, but you know, I don't want you to miss out. If you, I won't take that card because you probably think I'm wrong. I am going to take it because I took it. Now I've seen it, but yeah, if you want the cards, they're 50% off, and then I don't think I posted the link, but you'll find the link elsewhere on my page. Okay, so I know what this card is, and this is a really such a good card for, and I didn't pick it because I saw it. It was actually facing me, but I didn't read it, and I only read it after I picked it. It's really a good card for what we're doing, okay? And it's for all of us. I know normally I say, is this card for you? But this card is for all of us, okay? What we need to do to release. And it's so funny actually, because I've been listening to Denise Duffield Thomas's book, Lucky Bitch, this week on Audible. And she has been talking about exactly what's in this card and saying it's basically the best way to release blocks. And it is. And it's the best way to release anything. Self-doubt, anger, self-imposed limitations, whatever. So sometimes we forgive other people and sometimes we forgive ourselves. Okay? So I believe there's a very strong energy with this card. I believe it's very much about forgiving other people, but especially about forgiving yourself. For your self-doubt, for your self-imposed limitations, for your anger, for your fears. Just forgive yourself and know that you're doing your best, and just say from here on in, I'm going to do it differently, and I'm just going to release it and just pluck it out of your heart chakra and just chuck it away, okay? Pluck it out of your heart chakra, just chuck it away. All right, so there's our message for the dark moon. Forgive, okay? All right, so we are going to end with a chant. I'm going to do it 3 times. I'll say it first. Om Kali Ye Namaha. I'm going to chant it 3 times. And who is Kali? Well, she's the destroyer goddess, which is why we call to her as we go through the dark moon. So Kali, thank you for being here. Thank you for being gentle with us. And thank you for helping us to release whatever it is that we know that we need to release. We just call in forgiveness as well from Kuan Yin, the goddess Kuan Yin. And I can feel Lakshmi here too. So here we go. 3 times I'm going to chant it. Om Kali Ye Namaha. Om Kali Ye Namaha. Thank you, Carly, for helping us to release our blocks, to destroy and crumble our fears, and for helping us to empty ourselves out of any energetic debris before we set our intentions at the new moon eclipse tomorrow. Whew. So there we go, guys. That was our new moon tomorrow. But don't just now go off and, I don't know, just forget about it. Try and sit with the energies for the next at least half hour or couple of hours, and just try and be mindful of whatever it is that you're releasing, and just promise yourself that next time you start to go into fear about that thing, you're always going into fear, you go into self-doubt, or you get angry, or whatever it is, and just remember that this is your intention to let it all go. And try and catch yourself next time you go through it, and it can be really good to use the oracle cards, or any oracle cards, to kind of help you see a better way forwards. All right, so on that note, I'm going to attempt to end this broadcast. Let me see if I can, and then I'm going to go and read all your lovely messages, and then I'm going to go and have some family time. Let me see. I think the best way. Oh, here we go. All right. So remember, sit with it, let it go, and I'll see you back tomorrow, and you will see how different the energy is tomorrow for the new moon eclipse session after the new moon eclipse. All right. Lots of love.